How's it going, everyone? Yosef back here with another video, and I hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today, we have the 2025 Mazda CX-70, and it's a totally different car from the CX-90, right? Well, I'm not so sure, but today we're gonna find out. But before we get into the video, if you're new to the channel, my name is Yosef. I happen to be a car enthusiast with 3 kids, and I used to sell cars in the past. So if you're interested in my perspective, please subscribe. All right, now on with the video. Before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to Mazda of Toronto for loaning us this brand new 2025 Mazda CX-70 for the video. Thank you so much to Rana, Mo, and the entire team over there, but more on that at the end of the video. Okay, so to kick things off, we need to address the big elephant in the room, and that is, well, Mazda seemingly has taken the CX-90 and said, you know what, we're going to change the number on the back and make it a totally different car. Let's see if people notice. Well, if you look at it, on the face of it, it really is the exact same car as the CX-90, just minus the third row and a few small styling cues that have changed on the front and rear bumpers. But otherwise, it's exactly the same car. You've got the same engine choices, you've got the same interior, you've got the same powertrain. You also have basically all the interior functions that you would have had on the 3-row version, just without that third row. So the question is, does it make sense? Because this to me seems like the most ridiculous version of these sporty 3-row SUVs. And if you've seen a lot of my videos that take a look at sort of the sportier versions of the 3-row SUVs, you'll know that I'm not particularly a fan, because typically you're robbed of, well, convenience and practicality by removing that third row, and you've got sloped rear styling and stuff like that. But here's where the Mazda CX-70 differs. And that is, you get the 2 rows and the beautiful styling of the CX-90, but you only have the 2 rows and you don't lose any of the rear cargo space. And that's a huge bonus. Most of these 3-row SUVs that have turned sporty, you're robbed of so much of that cargo space in the back just because of that sloping rear end. But here, you don't have it. So maybe there are some benefits to the CX-70 over the CX-90. One of them, which is kind of interesting, is you actually save some weight. 45 pounds, which is not a lot, but all joking aside, you also save about $1,000 for the equivalent CX-90 trim in the CX-70. The one downside is that the CX-90 gives you a much bigger variety of options in terms of trim levels. For the CX-70, you start 1 trim level up from the CX-90, so you can't get the base version of it, but you do get some really nicely well-equipped versions of it. This particular trim level, the GTP with the melting copper paint color, is a really nicely equipped option. And I think this is one that a lot of people will likely take a look at. It's got the inline-6 engine, it's a mild hybrid, and you get a lot of the features that you would want to have without going overboard, but at the cost of almost $61,000 Canadian. So is it worth it? Should you buy the 2025 Mazda CX-70? Well, let's take a look at it in more detail. Let's start with the price. And the CX-70 comes in essentially 2 different configurations. You can get a mild hybrid, which is what we've got now, and you can get the plug-in hybrid. The mild hybrid starts at about $49,750 Canadian and goes all the way up to $62,300 for the Signature. And if you wanted to opt for the plug-in hybrid, you get the GSL model starting at $58,750 Canadian, going all the way up to the GT for $63,350 Canadian. In terms of power and performance, this mild hybrid system, which is a 48 volt, also comes paired with a 3.3 liter inline-6 turbocharged engine, and you get 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, which surprisingly is more powerful than the plug-in hybrid version, which only comes with a 2.5 liter turbocharged engine and delivers 323 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So let's start off by taking a look at the styling of the CX-70, and I happen to really like the way it looks. I think it's very handsome. It looks modern, but not too much so. And Mazda's done a really nice job of sculpting their vehicles. That's one thing that, you know what, you don't really see nowadays. A lot of car companies, they just use wind tunnels and computers to really figure out the way it should look, and it's kind of dictated by efficiency. But Mazda has said, no, we are still going to use clay models and we're still going to sculpt it because the way the light reflects off the vehicle is important to us. And it's very nice to see that when you look at the side profile of the CX-70, very much like the CX-90, you've got this really beautifully sculpted side. There aren't any sharp creases or anything like that, but it allows you to get some beautiful reflections off the side of the paint. And especially with this melting copper paint color, which is a $300 option, by the way, it looks fantastic. And a few really cool styling cues. You'll notice the difference between the CX-90 and the CX-70 is really the front fascia. We've got some bigger vents over here in the front, which are for the most part plasticky, but there is a little pass-through over there that goes channeling air around the wheels, which is very nice. And we've got a tasteful front grille. I love the way Mazda has sort of grown their front grille a little bit, but it still looks really nice. And you've got that very dark sort of chrome material that goes all around it and feeds into the daytime running lights, which looks really cool. Overall, a very handsome design in a sea of, well, kind of generic looking vehicles nowadays. I also really happen to like the way that Mazda has given us this inline 6 badge. It would have been nice for this to be a real vent, which I understand is probably not feasible, but it does look really nice and it shows everyone you've got the really cool, maybe more powerful version. One other small detail around the side profile of the CX-70 that you may not realize is Mazda has given us the doors going all the way down to the bottom, which is really important because when you get into your CX-70, you're not going to get your feet and your pants and skirts all dirty getting in with all the grime that's building up on the side of the vehicle. This kind of brings us all the way down and it's color matched. It looks really nice and you don't get black plastic cladding around here, so it makes it look a little bit more sophisticated and upscale. Moving to the tail end of the CX-70, it is very similar to what you get on the CX-90. Of course, you've got a CX-70 badge over there, but otherwise, a few small design changes that you'll find back here, but it is very similar to what you find on the CX-90. And if you're interested in watching my full review of that, click a link in the pop-up banner up there and you'll be able to see that review. But I do like the way that the CX-70 looks. The taillights are really nice and sleek. We don't have a light bar or anything crazy back here. The styling is relatively subdued. The one really interesting thing about the way that this is shaped is you'll notice that it's kind of sculpted out a little bit. So it gives you a little bit more interior room back there. It does bulge out a little bit and that's really up to your taste if you like it or not, but it does look very handsome and relatively restrained. Moving to the inside of the CX-70, we're greeted with an absolutely beautiful door card. And depending on the trim you get, there are some different colors and materials that you get back here, but you'll notice that we've got some really nice soft touch materials up here. You've got this plastic material that has some graphics on it that looks really nice and a little more aluminum looking material down here. I love the way we've got a real metal door pull and the padding that we have over here is really soft. So your elbows will feel nice and well rested after a long drive. I also really like the switchgear that we've got here. It feels really high end. You'll notice also that we've got some beautiful stitching along here and it's soft touch all the way up the door pull, which looks really nice. And I happen to love the design of it. It adds a lot to the style of the vehicle. Nothing too fancy down here, no felt padding or anything, so if you put stuff in the door pockets, even though they are quite large, they are going to rattle around a little bit. Now, Mazda has been known for creating really nice, luxurious feeling interiors, and it's no different when you take a look at these seats. They're absolutely beautiful, and the leather, the Nappa leather that we've got here is very soft and supple. It is a little bit firmer than some of the other vehicles in this segment, and I'm going to talk a lot about that because the Volkswagen Atlas is its biggest competitor in my opinion. And I'm going to draw a few comparisons between that because that Atlas happens to be one of the most comfortable vehicles in the segment that I've tested. But nevertheless, we've got our seat controls over here, which is really nice, and the memory for them just over here, which is a unique place. Most of the time, manufacturers put it down on the seat or on the door. Here we've got it right under the steering wheel. One really cool thing that a lot of people don't realize about Mazda is they really care about the ergonomics and the way that you sit and interact with the vehicle when you're driving. And one of the great ways of explaining that is, well, Mazda's taken the time to give you a very neutral feeling experience when you're putting your feet on the pedals. The pedal box is stretched out very wide over here. In a lot of other vehicles, that sidewall kind of gets pushed in and so the gas pedal is over here. And that means that your legs have to kind of pivot a little bit unnaturally. But in Mazda's, they actually make the pedal box relatively wide. So you've got a lot of room in there and it feels very natural sitting in the seat, allowing you to press on the throttle pedal and then pivot over to the brake. It just feels a little bit more natural than some other vehicles that I've tested. And that's something that is really small as a detail, but it makes a massive difference when you're driving for a long time. Moving to the steering wheel of the CX-70, I really like the way this thing looks. It's very soft and supple, and it's not too thick, so people who don't like a very chunky steering wheel will like this, but we have some nice details. We've got some stitching along here that looks very nice, and the physical buttons that we've got on the steering wheel function and feel really nice. They're solid, and they don't move around a lot, unlike some other vehicles that I've tested, and they don't feel really cheap. They've got a very nice click to them, and it's very satisfying to use them. And I happen to really prefer this over some of the other steering wheel designs that we've got in other vehicles with haptic and touch feedback type stuff. And Mazda has done a really nice job of giving us this pass through here. It looks great. We don't have a flat bottom steering wheel, but it's a very handsome looking steering wheel, and they've done a nice job with its design. Turning on the CX-70, we're greeted with a very nice display over here. However, if you're getting a Mazda and you're expecting top of the line, most high-end screens and technology, that is not something you're going to get in the CX-70. Even though we've got a digital gauge cluster here for the middle piece, it's relatively limited in terms of what you get to see there. So you're not going to get a lot of configurability. You get sort of just the normal information that you would want to see: fuel economy, your direction, driving, safety type stuff, but that's about it. You can't configure anything on the left side or the right side. All of that those are just fixed gauges that you can't manipulate. So not the best integration of a digital gauge cluster, but it does look very nice. One other thing that you'll notice is we've got a heads-up display over here. It's very difficult to see, but we do have a heads-up display with the basic information that you want to see in there. Nothing too crazy. Again, Mazda keeps things really to a minimal. You have what you need when you need it, nothing more, nothing less. And to go along with that, you'll notice that we've got our infotainment system over here. It's a relatively slim design, not a huge screen, and it's not touch screen. So the only way you can really activate the touch screen is when you go into Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but otherwise it is a physical dial down here that allows you to manipulate what goes on in the screen. And to be honest with you, that's something that I am used to. I have a Mazda CX-9, and I think it's a great idea to have the physical controls here, but we are in an age where people are used to tablets and smartphones and things like that. And I think at this point, although Mazda really likes to stick to its stay not distracted philosophy, it's time to change. And I'm pretty sure that in the next generation of vehicles, Mazda is going to move to the touchscreens. But for now, everything is sort of used with this physical dial over here. You've got these shortcuts, which make it really easy to get to your navigation, your home screen, your media, and you've got a physical dial here for turning on your sound and playing with the volume, which is a really nice thing to have. Generally speaking, though, it's a very sort of simple design here. We don't have a lot going on, but it's really nice that we've got this different material covering this area here instead of having just gloss black plastic. And what you'll notice is if you press this button, you've got your cup holders hidden, and it's in a really nice place because it doesn't block your shifter or having your arm resting over here. It's off to the side where the passenger is, which is a really nice placement for it. And just down here, you've got your wireless charger, which looks great. It's out of the way, keeps things really nice and clean when it comes to this center console area. And you've got a physical button over here for bringing up your cameras, which is really nice. So if we go back to the menu and the screen, you'll see you've got a 360 camera, which is relatively small, but you do have some different angles over here that you can take a look at. Again, not a touch screen. You're going to have to go using that rotary dial to be able to select what you want there. But otherwise, it is nice to have a backup camera with a 360, not the highest quality backup cameras in the world, but it's relatively similar to what you get on models that are in this segment. One cool thing that I love about Mazda is you've got so many physical dials and buttons and things like that here. They keep things relatively traditional, and you'll notice that you've got a whole slew of buttons for your climate controls and a separate screen. So when you're cold or hot and you want to make adjustments, you'll know exactly where the buttons are, and it's easy to go and hit the ones that you want. These toggle switches look really cool as well, and it makes it a bit of an occasion when you're kind of changing the temperature of the vehicle. And you've got a heated steering wheel, heated seats, and ventilated seats, each with 3 stages. And on a day today where it's relatively hot, it's nice to have that ventilation in your seats. But one other cool thing that I've noticed with this menu is you can of course adjust the fan speed for the front seat, but if you hit the rear control button, now you can control the rear climate controls separately. In a lot of vehicles, it's either on or off, and it's synced with everything that's going on in the front end. But here, you have the ability to control that for the back. And generally, I really like the interior design here. They've done a nice job at giving us a simple, clean design, nothing sort of protruding or big things that are sticking up on the dash. We've got some sculpting going on in the center dash over here, and you've got this really nice stitching going along which looks very high-end. And of course, this piece of plastic that looks like aluminum going across as well. It just seems like a very high-end, nice place to be. And if we take a look up here, you'll notice that we've got a rimless rear view mirror with our garage door open buttons over there, which is very nice. You've got your dome lights and other controls over here. But the one thing that Mazda's done exceptionally well, a lot of manufacturers don't get right, is giving us a sunglass holder. Thank you, Mazda. This just shows you, other manufacturers out there, I hope you're listening, you can still get all of the safety tech and radars and all that stuff in here and give us a sunglass holder. In a vehicle of this size that's designed for the family, you should have a sunglass holder. So thank you, Mazda, for that. There is a little bit of give with everything over here. That is one downside in terms of quality control with Mazda, but everything feels very nice. The materials are nice, and you'll notice that you've got also a beautiful panoramic sunroof, which is something that we haven't had for generations in Mazda. It's nice to see that the CX-70 and 90 have this panoramic sunroof. You also have a really nice armrest over here, which is very soft and plush, but you can open it up in two different sections, which means you've got a lot of room in here, but if you wanted to get something, you don't have to bug the driver or the passenger to move their arm so you can get stuff from it. And you'll notice that you've got these USB-C chargers in there, which is a very welcome addition, even though we've got also the wireless charger over there. Moving to the back of the CX-70, we're greeted with a very nice door card back here as well. But the biggest thing that I noticed when I opened the door of the CX-70 is just how wide it opens. I know this seems like a small thing, but not every vehicle in this segment has a door that opens 90 degrees when you get into the back. And you've got a nice size opening over here. So getting into the middle row is fairly easy. And it's nice that you've got a large opening if you've got kids or you're putting in a car seat. You've got a lot of space to get that in here. But before I get into all that, I wanted to say that the materials back here are also just as nice as the front. No scratchy black plastic over here. The same soft touch materials as we had in the front, and this really nice piece of plastic as well. Even the door pull is the same metal piece that we had earlier. The only thing is we've got these plastic speaker grates everywhere. It would have been nice with Bose to get the higher end speaker grates in here. But other than that, still the same stitching. Everything feels nice and high quality. And we've got the same really nice big door pockets with spots to put some rather large mugs. Moving to the seats of the back area over here, you'll notice that we've got the same beautiful leather, the stitching, and all of the perforation that we had in the front, even this really nice copper line that goes all the way across over here. Everything looks and feels very nice. You're not getting any cheaping out going in the back seat area over here. Easy ISOFIX points for mounting car seats and stuff like that. And it's really nice that we've got these recessed pockets for the seat belt. So when you fold your seats, they don't leave a little mark on the seat when you're putting things down. You'll notice that you also have a really nice section here for the climate vents. It does look a little outdated in my opinion. It's just kind of a slab going down, but it is really nice that we've got the heated rear seats, your full set of climate controls in there. You've got the USB Type-C ports as well, and you've got some really nice plush feeling door pockets. One thing that I've noticed back here is we've got a pull down armrest, which is of course very convenient and honestly one of the plushest armrests here that we've got with some cup holders, which is very nice, but we're missing the pass-through. And on a vehicle like this, to me, that's just a miss. Even though you've got a massive trunk, it would be nice to have this pass-through so you can load larger items if you're going skiing or you want to bring some plywood and 2x4s and you want to have them stick through here. It would be nice to have that pass-through, but otherwise, it is a very nice back seat area. We've got a ton of space because this is only 2 rows. And you've got a lot of adjustability over here. You can recline these seats forward and back. The one thing that we also can do, which is very nice, is you can slide it forwards and backwards. It's a little difficult with this one because, well, we're on the 2-seat section, but it is nice that you can adjust your seating position over here in the middle row. And if you've got kids sitting in the back, we also have the ability to put up the sunshade, which is very nice to have. Not a lot of vehicles have these in the sort of normal market segment that the CX-70 and 90 sit in, but it is nice that we've got this, even though it's not powered, makes a big difference for the kids. Moving to the tailgate area of the CX-70, we press the button back here to open up the tailgate, and you notice that, well, we've got a massive area back here, and that's because, of course, this is the CX-70 and not the 90. We have no third row seats to fold up or down back here, which is really nice, which means that you've got all of that space for your cargo. Few interesting things to note. Number one, I said at the beginning of the video that, well, this is basically a rebadged CX-90 without the third row. And one of the obvious ways to tell is you've got the cup holders and everything back here, this is where the third row passengers would normally sit. And well, as a cost-cutting measure, Mazda hasn't removed that and created its own unique backseat area here because, well, nobody can sit back here and take advantage of those cup holders because there are no seats. It's just a flat loading area. But there is one really great thing about this. Because Mazda has made this a 2-row SUV, you now have buttons that you can press over here to lower that middle row, because otherwise it would be impossible to reach back there and lower it from the trunk. So if you have a lot of stuff to haul in here and you don't want to have to go around and do it manually, all you have to do is press these buttons and it'll automatically fold those seats flat, which is a really nice feature. That being said though, there is no way to bring them back up. You can't press this button again and bring the seats back up. That you'll have to do manually. One thing that I wanted to mention just about these folding seats is they're not as simple to fold back up as you might expect. Yes, they come back up, but they don't go back up to the same position that you had them before. And to put them back to the same position that you had before, you have to lift this lever over here. And to get it all the way up to the position where you can fold it up or down is quite a heavy thing to do. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind as well. In some vehicles, it's a little bit easier to adjust the seats. Here, you got to lift it relatively hard and push the seat back, and that brings it back into its position. It would have been nice for Mazda to have sort of a mechanism that remembered where the seat was when you folded it down so that it would go back up to where it was before. But that's a small detail. Just thought I'd mention that in terms of practicality. But otherwise, it is nice. We've got some lighting back here, some additional storage bin down there, and we've got some charge ports over here as well. If we take a look under the load floor, we also have a little bit of space. Because this is a mild hybrid, there's a little bit of hybrid system stuff going on under here. And so that robs us with a little bit of room, but it's not so bad. And I do really like the fact that we've got a very wide open space to load stuff in here. And again, you'll notice that because of the unique shape of the CX-70 and 90, we've got a lot more room coming all the way to the back of the trunk, which in some vehicles you get robbed of, especially on the sporty SUV versions of the larger vehicles. One last thing that I'll mention about the trunk area is you've got the 2 buttons, which I really like for closing. Close or close and lock, and that's something we don't get on every vehicle as well. So let's close that off and see how it drives. Okay, so should you buy the Mazda CX-70? Honestly, this is something that I have been agonizing about over the last few days. And the reason for that is it's not exactly a simple question to answer. I have my personal opinion about this. I'm going to share that. I've got my objective opinion about it, which I'm going to share as well. But it's a very, very difficult question to answer because the CX-70 and CX-90 are so similar that it's almost hard to distinguish between them. And it just seems like this is another trim level relative to the CX-90. It's not that you're getting a totally different car. And for that, it doesn't feel like it's so special and unique. That being said, however, I do understand the purpose of the vehicle and I do understand why people like it and why they buy it. And I'm not saying that it's not a great thing to do. It's a wonderful vehicle. It's just hard for me to rationalize this in my mind, and I'll go into the details about that in a moment. But before I do, I wanted to comment a little bit on the driving and sort of the package and what you get with the CX-70. So getting in here, Mazda spends a lot of time and energy researching and developing and building vehicles that sort of feel a little bit above their class. And I think with the CX-90 and the CX-70, Mazda's done a really great job with that. You've got a really handsome looking vehicle. It may not be everybody's taste, but it does look very nice and refined. You also have a beautiful interior. Everything looks and feels very high quality, and generally it drives very, very nicely. It's very quiet. The seats are relatively comfortable. They're not the most comfortable seats that I've been in, but they do feel really nice. They're a little bit firmer than some of the other vehicles in the segment, but you know, everything just feels kind of a little bit of a class above what you would expect from a mainstream vehicle. And it's sort of edging the somewhat, we'll call it, luxury market. Other than that though, you are paying a little bit of a price when it comes to technology. And Mazda used to be, in my opinion, one of the great balances when it came to technology. They threw in a lot of really great stuff, not too much, not too little, but with the modern Mazdas, I find that Mazda is stuck to this very physical control, kind of what we are normally used to of vehicles for the last 2 decades, and sort of keeping that going forward with its technology. It's not a bad thing. I really do like the physical controls and buttons and all of that stuff, and it's really nice that we have, you know, a lot of the features that we have in here, but it doesn't really stand out. And a lot of the vehicle manufacturers right now are kind of pushing forward to see what else can they do, how can they push the envelope, you know, move that bar forward so that their vehicles really stand out and people are interested and excited about buying them. And Mazda is sort of taking a step back from that and giving us a lot of really great stuff, but not really pushing the envelope when it comes to technology. But with the CX-70 and the CX-90, I think they've done a relatively good job at giving us that right balance, but I think it's going to feel its age very quickly. It's not going to feel as modern as some of the other vehicles that you might be able to buy in today's segment. And a good example of that is the Volkswagen Atlas. And the Atlas Cross are super comfortable. The materials also feel really nice, and it kind of feels like it's punching a little bit above its weight class. But with an Atlas, for example, you get a full digital gauge cluster. You get some really beautiful ambient lighting. You get technology that just feels where it should be in today's day and age. And that's something that frustrates me a little bit with Mazda, is we're not quite getting there. The fact that we don't have a full touchscreen over here, we don't have a full digital gauge cluster, that's something that I think a lot of people will be frustrated with when they get the vehicle. But if you can look past that, you are getting a superbly comfortable and well driving, and I think just overall a very nice vehicle. The ergonomics in here are spot on. You've got great adjustment in the seats. The steering wheel feels really nice in the hands. And what I said before about the pedal box, it really does make a difference. My mother-in-law has a Mercedes GLC from 2023, and I've been driving that for a few days, and the pedal box feels a little justified over to the left, and it just feels a little less comfortable to drive than something like this. I feel more relaxed and in a more natural state sitting behind the wheel over here. But I realize that that may not be the be all and end all for most people, but it is a very easy vehicle to drive. It is so quiet. It feels really isolated from the road noise and everything else outside, and it just feels like a relaxing vehicle to drive. And you have a ton of space. You've got great visibility over here. You've got, again, a lot of the features that you would like, the ventilated seats and all of that. It just feels really nice and high quality and more of a premium vehicle than you might expect. So for that, that is probably what Mazda is really looking for in terms of clientele, not the people that are looking for the cutting edge technology and the latest and greatest and all the gimmicks and the wow factor of all the lights and really cool stuff. That's not Mazda's focus. Mazda wants people that are interested in comfort, convenience, really good ergonomics, and an experience that allows you to be relaxed when you're going through a long drive. And that's exactly what they've done over here. That's the driving experience part of it. And I will say also just a little mention about the power and performance. It's enough. It's not a lot to shout about, but it is more than enough, and it drives a lot smaller than you would expect being a large sort of mid-sized SUV. And the brake pedal feels pretty good, even though this is a mild hybrid and there's a little bit of that regenerative braking. It's pretty easy to modulate. It's not one that's super grabby and difficult to figure out. I think Mazda's done a really good job calibrating that. Now, should you buy this over the CX-90? That is the big question that I know a lot of people are sitting here wondering what my opinion is. So my opinion is this. I think that the CX-90 is better value. You can get a cheaper base model option. The CX-70, you have to go up one trim level, that you can't get that base model like you do in the CX-90. So value for money, you're better off getting the CX-90. And tit for tat, you know, the equivalent models that you'll get for the CX-70 and CX-90, yes, the CX-70 is going to be about $1,000 less, just because you're saving a little bit of money from not having that third row of seats. But again, you're getting the same form factor, you're going to get the same amount of space as you would in the CX-90, you're just losing the practicality of having that third row seat. So that's up to you with what you want. Some of the other vehicles in the segment where you've got a 3-row SUV that they give you a 2-row version, you're at least getting different styling. You're getting something that looks substantially different and potentially some more sporty driving dynamics and engine options and transmission, stuff like that. You're just not getting that over here. You get the same 340 horsepower inline-six engine that you would in the CX-90, but again, you're just losing that third row of seats. So it's up to you with what you want. My personal opinion, I believe that it's better value to get the CX-90. I do understand that some people say, look, they don't have kids, they don't need third rows of seats, but if you're already buying the same form factor vehicle, you might as well get that third row in case there's some circumstance where you have to take some friends or you want to go on a longer road trip and you've got some other stuff that you want to put back here in addition to people. Having that flexibility of just being able to fold down seats and fold them back up, to me, just makes more sense. And the one drawback is here, even though you only have 2 rows, you don't have that pass through and some of the other conveniences that you get in a lot of other vehicles in the German market, I'm gonna say. So that's something that I would have really liked to see in this vehicle that we just don't have. But overall, if you look at it as its own vehicle, you're getting a really awesome car. The CX-70 is fantastic. It drives really well. Again, I think the price point is exactly where it should be relative to other vehicles in the segment. You're not spending a lot more or a lot less than other vehicles, and it drives really nicely. It's so quiet, even more so than you would expect from a vehicle in this class, and it feels really nice to drive. It's very relaxing. Everything is very refined. The transmission works really well with this powertrain, and I like the fact that it's rear wheel bias in the all-wheel drive system and the fact that it's a mild hybrid. And that kind of brings me to the last point. I know I compare this a lot to the Volkswagen Atlas and the Atlas Cross, but the biggest thing that Mazda has over Volkswagen when it comes to these types of vehicles is that Mazda offers the plug-in hybrid. And in today's age, where everyone's focused on fuel economy and efficiency and saving money, having the ability to get a plug-in hybrid and the regular version being a mild hybrid, to me, is a massive, massive win. Not every vehicle has a plug-in hybrid option. Not every vehicle in this segment has a mild hybrid option. And the fact that you've got both of those to choose from is a really big deal. I like the fact that you've got, again, the option to save fuel a lot better in the plug-in hybrid. And if you've got a charger at home, it's sort of the best of both worlds. You're not paying for an electric vehicle and ditching the internal combustion engine. You're getting kind of the best balance of both. And you're not paying a huge premium to get the plug-in hybrid over the regular mild hybrid, and you're not sacrificing a lot of performance either and giving up on special trims and things like that. You can get really nicely equipped versions in the plug-in hybrid in the same way that you can over here in the mild hybrid version. You just can't get every single option. So in my opinion, having that ability to get the plug-in or mild hybrid options, that really sets Mazda up a bit above some of its competitors. And I really, really enjoy the way that Mazda has developed the CX-90 and the options that we have here. And I love the fact that that's carried forward in the CX-70 as well. So if you look at it as a standalone vehicle, you're getting a really nice package. The CX-70 is a great vehicle to buy. You're getting a lot of things that you would want to have: the practicality, the luxuriousness, the drive feel, and generally good value for the money that you're going to spend over here. But my personal opinion is I would rather get the CX-90 over the CX-70. And if you were really comparing between the Volkswagen Atlas and the Mazda, I think the Mazda is the one that I would buy as the vehicle that I would want to own for the longer period of time, because it just is more reliable. It's a fact. It's going to give you less headache and less issues over the course of its ownership, and it's a really good vehicle to buy. The Volkswagen is the one that I would enjoy driving probably more than the Mazda, because it's just more convenient. You've got, all of the touchscreen and the digital gauge cluster and the technology that you would normally want to have, and the seats are a little bit more soft and plush and comfortable to sit in. So it's the one that I would enjoy probably owning more than the CX-90 and CX-70. But if I had to pay my money for the long term and have a vehicle that I needed to own 4, 5, 10 years down the road, I would definitely be choosing the CX-90 or the CX-70 over the Volkswagen Atlas. And that's everything I've got to say about it. So I hope you found this video helpful. It was really fun making it, and I'm very grateful to Mazda of Toronto for loaning me this CX-70 for the last few hours to make this video. Special thank you to Rana and Mo and Dave and the team there. If you're in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, you're looking to buy a Mazda, definitely check out Mazda of Toronto. They are a phenomenal group of people, and they will definitely help out make sure that you get the right vehicle that you're looking for. And again, I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to watch the video. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.